We often think of power as something loud, visible, and forceful. We picture clenched fists, raised voices, or someone pushing forward no matter what stands in the way. That's the version of strength most of us were taught to admire. But here's a truth that life eventually teaches us: real power is often quiet. It doesn't always show itself in winning the argument, proving the point, or standing in the spotlight. Real power often reveals itself in restraint, choosing not to fight, not to react, not to let anger or pride dictate your next move. Self-restraint is one of the most underrated strengths in life. Anyone can lose control. Anyone can let words fly in the heat of the moment. Anyone can insist on winning no matter the cost. But it takes a deeper kind of person to pause and say, not every battle is worth fighting. Not every hill is worth dying on. Not every moment requires me to be the victor. That pause is where wisdom lives. That pause is where love survives. That pause is where destruction is avoided and peace is protected. Think about the last time you were in a heated argument. Your mind was probably racing, your heart pounding, your mouth ready to release words that could cut deep. In that moment, restraint felt almost impossible, but if you held back, even for just a few seconds, what happened? Chances are the fire burned a little less intensely. The situation calmed down. The damage was smaller than it could have been. That is the power of restraint. It saves people from wounds that might never have healed. Now let's make something very clear. Restraint is not weakness. Weakness is when you lash out because you can't control yourself. Weakness is when your ego is so fragile that it must always be defended. Restraint, on the other hand, is deliberate. It is a conscious act of strength. It says, I could destroy, but I choose not to. I could dominate, but I choose to protect. I could win, but I choose peace instead. That is strength far greater than any outward display of force. History is filled with examples of people who changed the course of events through restraint. Think of leaders who refused to retaliate even when provoked. Their choice to hold back prevented wars, saved lives, and opened doors to peace. Think of parents who held their tongue instead of unleashing anger, and in doing so, kept trust alive in their children's hearts. Think of friends who chose silence in moments when the truth, though accurate, would have shattered someone's spirit. Their restraint was not cowardice, it was compassion, it was wisdom, it was love. Restraint also teaches us something vital: humility. It reminds us that life is not about proving ourselves right at every turn. It's not about constantly winning battles or making sure others see us as strong. Life is bigger than that. Relationships, dignity, and peace matter more than ego. Self-restraint is what allows us to see that bigger picture and protect it. But here's the challenge. Restraint is not natural. It goes against our instincts. When we are hurt, the instinct is to hurt back. When we are misunderstood, the instinct is to defend. When we are challenged, the instinct is to rise and fight. Restraint requires us to override those instincts and act from a higher place. It demands that we ask ourselves, if I do this, will it build or will it break? Will it save or will it destroy? Answering those questions honestly will often show us that stepping back, holding silence, or pausing our reaction is the path of real strength. Of course, restraint doesn't mean we never speak up. It doesn't mean we let injustice continue unchecked or that we allow others to trample over us. True restraint is not about ignoring what matters. It's about timing and intention. It's knowing when to speak, when to act, and when to hold back. It's the balance between courage and wisdom. It's the ability to choose the right moment, not just any moment. And here's something important. Restraint doesn't just save others, it saves you. Every time you hold back from anger, you protect your peace. Every time you resist the urge to escalate, you protect your energy. Every time you choose silence over unnecessary conflict, You protect your future from the regret of words you can't take back. Restraint is a shield you hold not only for others, but also for yourself. In many ways, self-restraint is a form of unseen heroism. People don't always notice it. You don't get applause for biting your tongue. No one cheers when you choose not to respond. But silently, you are saving relationships, protecting trust, and preventing wounds. You are saving others in ways they may never even realize. That is the hidden greatness of restraint. It works quietly, but its impact is enormous. So the next time life pushes you to react, to defend, to explode, pause, take a breath. Remember that not every fight is worth your energy. Remember that true strength lies not in proving yourself, but in protecting what matters. Sometimes the best way to save others is not by advancing, not by shouting, not by forcing your way through, but by stepping back and holding still. That is the power of self-restraint. And if you can master it, you will not only save others, but you will also save yourself from battles that never needed to be fought. When people hear the word sacrifice, they often think of loss. They think of giving something up, letting go of what they desire, or walking away from what feels comfortable. And yes, sacrifice is about giving something up, but what makes it powerful is why we give it up. Sacrifice is not about weakness, it is about choosing to put something greater above our own temporary wants. It is about protecting others, preserving peace, and making sure the things that truly matter are not destroyed by ego, pride, or selfishness. Sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is to step back so someone else can move forward, to hold your silence so someone else can be heard, to let go of your pride so a relationship can heal. The sacrifice is not easy, but it is necessary if we want to save what is most valuable in life. Think of the sacrifices made by parents. A mother who stays up through the night with her sick child is sacrificing her sleep, her comfort, her own needs for the greater good of her child's well-being. A father who works 2 jobs to pay for his family's future is sacrificing that, his time and energy, so his children will have opportunities he never had. These sacrifices are often invisible to the outside world, but they are the foundation on which lives are built. They show us that love is not proven by words, but by what we are willing to give up for the sake of another. Sacrifice also shows up in friendships and partnerships. Sometimes choosing not to win an argument is a sacrifice. Choosing to listen instead of speaking, to forgive instead of holding a grudge, to stay patient when you want to explode. These are all small sacrifices that protect the bond you share with others. They might feel like losses in the moment, but they are victories for the relationship as a whole. They prove that you care more about the connection than about your ego. But here's the truth. Sacrifice often hurts. It asks you to let go of something you want. It asks you to swallow your pride, to endure discomfort, to put someone else first. That is why so few people are willing to do it consistently. Yet, the most meaningful lives are built not on how much we gained, but on how much we gave. Because what we give is what truly lasts. Sacrifice for the greater good also requires vision. You have to see beyond the moment. You have to recognize that sometimes stepping back now will create peace later. That sometimes losing a battle now will preserve the relationship for the future. That sometimes your silence today prevents scars that might last a lifetime. Without vision, sacrifice feels like defeat. But with vision, sacrifice feels like love. Consider the times when you chose peace instead of revenge, or when you walked away from a conflict instead of fueling it further. Those moments may have felt small, but they may have prevented deep pain in someone else's life. They may have spared someone from guilt, from regret, from a wound that would never heal. That's the power of sacrifice. It is not always visible, but it is always impactful. And here is the paradox: sacrifice doesn't actually leave you with less. It may feel like loss in the moment, but it often brings greater rewards in the long run. When you sacrifice for someone you love, you gain trust. When you sacrifice for peace, you gain respect. When you sacrifice your ego, you gain strength of character. Sacrifice is like planting seeds. You give something away, but what grows is far more valuable than what you surrendered. Sacrifice also transforms the one who gives. Every time you choose to let go of pride, you become freer. Every time you put someone else before yourself, your heart grows bigger. Every time you step back for the sake of the greater good, you prove to yourself that you are strong enough to rise above selfishness. And that transformation is priceless. It shapes you into a person who can be trusted, admired, and remembered. Of course, sacrifice must be balanced with wisdom. It doesn't mean allowing yourself to be abused or drained endlessly. It doesn't mean giving up everything you are for people who only take and never give. True sacrifice is rooted in love and discernment. It protects, it uplifts, it preserves life. If your sacrifice is destroying you while enabling someone else's harm, then it is not truly for the greater good. The kind of sacrifice we are speaking of here is the kind that prevents damage, heals wounds, and protects what is sacred. So the next time you find yourself in a situation where your pride wants to rise, your ego wants to fight, or your anger wants to lash out, pause. Ask yourself, what truly matters here? Will winning save this relationship? Will proving myself protect this person? Or is it better to step back, let go, and sacrifice my pride for something far more valuable? The answer will often point you towards sacrifice. And in that moment, your choice could be the very thing that saves someone else from pain. Sacrifice is not glamorous. It doesn't make headlines. People may not even notice it. But it is one of the highest forms of love and wisdom. It proves that you care more about protecting life than about proving yourself. It shows that you understand something bigger than the moment, that peace, dignity, and love are worth more than pride. And when you live with that mindset, you not only save others, but you also elevate yourself into a life of deeper meaning and purpose. That is the power of sacrifice for the greater good. There is a powerful truth that many people resist accepting sometimes. The best way to save others is not to stay, but to walk away. This is one of the hardest lessons in life, because we are taught from a young age that loyalty means never leaving, that perseverance means holding on at all costs, and that strength means enduring no matter how much it hurts. But real wisdom is not about clinging endlessly. It's about discerning when staying will cause more harm than good. And in those moments, walking away becomes an act of love, courage, and salvation. Walking away is not weakness. It takes far more courage to release something than to cling to it. Staying often feels easier because it's familiar, even if it's painful. But walking away requires us to confront the unknown, to embrace uncertainty, and to risk being misunderstood. It asks us to choose long-term healing over short-term comfort. And in doing so, it often saves both us and those we care about. Consider relationships where conflict never ends, where communication breaks down again and again, where staying only deepens the wounds. Many people think that holding on is the noble choice, that love demands endless endurance. But in reality, sometimes staying only enables toxicity. Sometimes your presence in someone's life keeps them from facing their own growth. Sometimes your efforts to fix things actually prevent healing. In those moments, wisdom whispers a hard truth. You cannot save them by staying, but you might save them by stepping away. Walking away can feel like betrayal, but in reality, it can be one of the most compassionate choices you ever make. By removing yourself from a destructive cycle, you create space for reflection. You interrupt the pattern. You allow silence to speak where words have failed. You give the other person the chance to see themselves more clearly, to take responsibility, to grow in ways they never could while you were holding everything together. Your absence can be the very thing that awakens their transformation. But walking away doesn't just save others, it also saves you. It protects your mental health, your peace, your future. If you drain yourself endlessly in situations that cannot be healed by your presence, you eventually have nothing left to give. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot save others if you destroy yourself in the process. Walking away is how you preserve your strength so that you can continue to serve and love in places where your energy truly makes a difference. Wisdom is what separates reckless walking away from purposeful walking away. Not every difficulty is a sign to leave. Some challenges are meant to be endured. Some struggles are meant to be worked through. Some hardships are the soil in which love and trust grow stronger. But wisdom helps you see the difference. It teaches you to ask, is this pain building us or is it breaking us? Is this struggle shaping growth or is it feeding destruction? Is staying saving or is it enabling? The answers to those questions guide you toward whether to hold on or to step back. We also need to recognize that walking away is not always permanent. Sometimes it is temporary. Sometimes stepping back allows for healing, for growth, for a fresh perspective, and later reconciliation becomes possible. But if you never step back, if you never create that space, the chance for change may not come. Walking away is not always about ending. It is often about pausing, about giving life the room to rearrange itself, about allowing time to do what effort could not. Walking away is also about freedom, yours and theirs. When you choose to step out of a destructive cycle, you are saying, I value life more than control. I value peace more than pride. I value healing more than appearances. That choice liberates both you and the other person. It stops the damage from spreading. It interrupts the spiral of pain. And though it hurts in the moment, it creates the possibility of a better future for both sides. One of the most misunderstood truths about walking away is this. It does not mean you no longer care. In fact, sometimes it means you care so deeply that you are willing to do the hardest thing, leave. It means you care enough to protect the other person from the damage of your anger, your exhaustion, or your resentment. It means you care enough to allow them the dignity of facing themselves. It means you care enough to save them by stepping back. So the next time you find yourself clinging to something that is breaking you, ask yourself, am I staying because this is truly saving, or because I am afraid of letting go? Am I holding on because it is right or because it is familiar? If the honest answer is that staying is only causing destruction, then wisdom is calling you to walk away. And though it will hurt, it may be the very act that saves not only them, but you as well. Walking away is not about giving up. It is about choosing life over destruction, peace over pride, healing over endless struggle. It is about trusting that sometimes stepping back is the most powerful step forward. That is the wisdom in knowing when to walk away.